This is sadder news, more dark stuff. The former drummer of My Chemical Romance, named Bob Bryar, died last month at the age of 44. And sadly, tragically, his body was not found until 25 days later in his apartment. And TMZ reported on this, some of the disturbing details. Law enforcement told TMZ that he was found dead in his Tennessee home after last being seen alive on November 4th. There is no foul play suspected because his weapons and music equipment in the home were left untouched. But animal control had to be called to his house after the body was discovered. His body was badly decomposed, and they took 2 dogs out of the house. The medical examiner is investigating the cause and manner of Bryar's death, but people are basically assuming that this was his own doing. They were talking about him selling some of his own prized possessions as well shortly before this happened. Pop Bass posted an announcement of his death on November 29th. No further comment was made about him, but they had to turn off their comment section on that post because the responses were so disgusting that they had to just turn off all.
I'm surprised they did anyways.
I'm surprised that they turned off comments for that reason, but there were so many people celebrating and rejoicing at his death in the comment section, they had to turn off comments. Why? I had no idea prior to this, but apparently he was right-wing and he tweeted some stuff that offended leftists. Therefore, they're saying he deserved to die young. They are just gloating over the fact that he wasn't found for many days, almost a month after his death. They think that this is something to celebrate, and they are gloating about it on social media, stuff that you would say obviously behind your screen, not in person to his loved ones. But here were some of the responses. One said, "Look, Bob Bryar was a polarizing figure, but I don't think anyone should be so alone that they were just dead in their house undiscovered for 25 days.
Yeah.
They are saying that he deserved this because he was vaguely right-wing. Like, his political views were right-wing. That's all I know. He was problematic in their eyes. So this person responded saying, well, yes, actually, they should. Unfortunately, you don't get to live your life as a shitty person and then magically have people support you in your death or after it. People are real and not a point in your story. If you want relationships with them, you have to nurture that." And another one said, "He 100% did it to himself. You could not pay me to care that the bastard died in the hole he dug himself. Shouldn't have been a violently racist and transphobic piece of shit."
It's really funny because I remember, like, there would be videos made after, like, John McCain died or any of these, like, old guard right-wing warmongers who sent your kids off to die in a war that didn't need to happen in the first place. And some would be like, I'm not going to feel bad that the guy who sent your children off to die died. Like, especially if they didn't die and, you know, they just died of old age, whatever. Okay. Even then, my instinct is to say, I'm not going to celebrate either way, but that would be more applicable than a dude who just said some stuff online that you disagree with and who doesn't agree with your lifestyle. Right.
Yeah.
So this happens on both sides. It happens far more because the left has a lot of violent fantasies. They always seem to come back to fantasies of violence and stuff like that. Oddly enough, the ones who have had the least actual real world experience with any violence tend to be prone towards the most violent fantasies. So this doesn't surprise me at all. It's the exact problem we have with so much of social media now, which is that you couldn't imagine someone saying something like that to you in the real world ever.
Or to anyone he knows either.
Yes, exactly.
And, like, I'm sure that Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance, he is a massive lefty. I'm sure that he disagreed with his drummer
What do they
about
mean?
pretty much
And what do
every
they-
political issue.
What does violently racist mean? Like what like how do you describe violent in that? Is this violent as in
If he had committed a violent crime,
Yeah.
they would have said that, but that's not the point. It's that his rhetoric must have been
And
his
look,
rhetoric
this is
was
why-
violent.
This
Like
is one of the reasons why I like whenever I go on IRL, I say like this is why politics is so depressing, right? Because we're talking about a celebrity, somebody who made music. Music is one of the most inspirational and influential things for young people. I mean, for everyone, right? But especially if we're talking emo, we're talking about
Right.
young people, right? Something that's supposed to bring so many people together, and it's the opposite of vile, right? Creation is the opposite of vile, and it's one of the reasons why if I was someone in that world, even if I had strong political opinions, I probably wouldn't share them because, and again, maybe I'm just not as, I'm just not a polarizing person in general. But it always just kind of bums me out, right? Is like, you look at this stuff, you look at the act of creation, making music that people love. The same is true for actors. And then you see what happens if you deviate at all from anything that they want, and you see the opposite. You see the worst of humanity in politics, and this does go for both sides, but obviously we understand that in the last few years, especially in the rise of social media, we see this predominantly because they have been primed by an evil mainstream media that has told them that the people that disagree with you don't just have opposite opinions, they're evil, which makes them feel comfortable in expressing these types of notions. I would hold the media every bit as responsible for this type of sentiment as I would the people saying it themselves. They're both responsible. The media is responsible for portraying people with opposing views as some type of faceless evil, and they're responsible for not being mature enough to actually go into it, look into it, and find a little bit of nuance.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about Bob Bryar's political views. Apparently, he tweeted a lot of stuff that pissed these people off. You know, I just think that if you're creative, if you're an artist, you're more likely to be extreme in other ways too, and unpredictable. So that would go for any of them.
Yeah.
More prone to risk-taking behavior too. But it's certainly a different thing to sit there and say, I'm not sad about this person's death, versus
Yes.
I am actually rejoicing and boasting about it, and I wished this upon them, and this is what they deserve, to die in possibly like one of the most undignified ways possible and be mocked afterwards because you said some stuff online that hurt my feelings. Or no, it didn't hurt their feelings. They are performatively hurt. They are performatively, like, you know, crying out as they stab you or whatever.
Yep.
Like
Cry
the
bullies.
saying goes. That's what they're doing. They're pretending that this guy personally hurt them. I don't know anything about the type of person he was, the views he held, other than he vaguely was like anti-woke.
Hey,
Whatever.
who was it the Mumford and Sons dude? He's
yeah.
good. This is your fate in the future too, sadly.
Ronnie Radke of
Yep.
Falling in Reverse, who has had a huge turnaround with the amount of success his music is doing.
That's very different
insane
now.
numbers now.
Yeah.
But he's also the type of person who doesn't care who he pisses off, and he'll just says whatever he thinks.
Yeah.
And he won't let people back him into a corner, and I think that's really cool. When you're talented. If you're not talented, maybe you should just have an anonymous account. But it's cool that he is good at what he does and speaks his mind freely and doesn't care who boycotts him for it.
That's why Phil is allowed to
Yes.
to have the
Yes.
opinions that he has, because he doesn't care, and he's well read, he's educated on everything that he speaks about, and he's extremely talented and does his job well, so nobody can back him into a corner and say, look, we're not going to support you unless you say this. He knows that his talent will out in the end.
I like to think that these people in the comments are not adults. Like, I like to imagine them being like 15-year-olds on the internet.
No, these are people in their 30s at some desk job.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. They're saying he's reaped what he sowed. One person said he was a huge bigot and kind of brought this on himself. I'm not going to celebrate this, but him being so alone was a bed that he made. Another one said, I think people who wish death upon minorities deserve exactly that.
Did he do that?
I don't know.
Did he do that?
I literally don't know, but if he did, it, like, there would be proof, right?
Well,
even if he did, it's like, okay, so you said something insane. Do you deserve a violent, lonely, like, devastating death? Like, no, I don't think that people deserve that. Another one said, I hate the amount of y'all that can excuse violent fascism, racism, and bigotry as, quote, different political views. That is so funny when we think about this person's worldview. They would literally say that you're one of the violent fascists, Brett.
Yeah, I know.
So that's why the distinction doesn't matter. Another one said, worst part of this is it most likely was his own doing. Over the last few months, he always came off as lonely and seeking attention. And of course, going down the alt-right pipeline makes all the decent people in your life stop talking to you.
Again, that's where they draw the line at the distinction, meaning that, first of all, like to what you just said earlier, there is no alt-right. It's just all alt-right.
Yeah,
to them,
yes.
Because if you consider me to be alt-right, you've lost your mind. But they would consider me to be alt-right, even though I'm not, because I don't even know what that term means anymore.
Yeah, it's like they're also trying to reduce down. They're like being reductive by explaining away his suicide as a result of his political views. Yeah. Actually, they're trying to say that he was isolated, lonely, depressed because of his political views, which is insane if you think about it for a second. Maybe you could say that being depressed led him to more extreme views. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. But it definitely wasn't the other way around. And they don't even know this guy, and they're coming up with they're crafting a whole narrative about how he ended up in this situation to bolster their own political philosophy.
It makes them feel better about what they believe.
When these people are not happy. Yeah. These people are actually very deeply depressed and bitter and angry.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.